Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer, alongside my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan, and straight out of Citi Field in this reaction episode to a great game between the Mets and the Dodgers. Dan, how are you doing tonight?
Well, that game was playoff atmosphere from start to finish. I mean, it was, and of course, I have to say it was extra special. I was glad my sister joined me also for that game. I was buying tickets to this game like last weekend. I realized like the calculation right of the pitching rotation that DeGrom was going to be pitching Wednesday. So I looked up and I found some nice little tickets for like I think I paid like maybe like 35 total for two tickets on when I looked on Game Time. And so when I was buying the ticket for myself, I think that was 35 total for the two tickets. But my sister went and told me, she said, "Oh, could I go with it if you could find two tickets in that deal?" So I found looks like there was two tickets. So I said, "Okay, Shannon, looks like you're also going to get to see DeGrom pitch." So we were at the game tonight with a playoff atmosphere like Rocky. I mean, DeGrom was pitching to what I expect DeGrom's expectancy. Of course, like right after this broadcast, I'm gonna have to update the strikeout totals on that DeGrom bobblehead I have, as you know.
That's true. You're going to have to add 9 more, as DeGrom had just a fantastic night against an absolutely stacked LA Dodgers team. As the Dodgers, they have 3 former MVPs in that lineup. Just absolutely from top to bottom. Even the guys like Gavin Lux, we saw that he could be a pest in this series. Absolutely, stacked from top to bottom, the Dodgers. But DeGrom mowed them down tonight. 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 9 strikeouts. Dan, what was it like being there, watching the electricity of Jacob DeGrom and that stadium hanging on every pitch that he throws?
This is what it must have been like when Tom Seaver was around, and of course, not good. And of course, also I imagine this must have been what it must have been like for people who grew up in Chicago during that time of Jordan. That's what it was like today.
Very true. And Dan, I don't know if you saw this because, like we mentioned, you were coming home from the Met game as you just arrived at your home in Queens, coming home from the Mets in Flushing. And, when you look at it, Dan, Mookie Betts had an interview after the game with the Dodgers regional sports network, from LA. And he said after the game that they asked him, what was it like facing Jacob DeGrom? And he said, Jacob DeGrom might be the best pitcher of all time, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but when you look at his comments, it was basically, he's the best pitcher right now, and if you really think about it, he might be the best pitcher of all time. And that's high praise coming from one of the former MVPs in that lineup, right?
Yeah, that to me, what that reminds me of? I remember hearing some interviews, like I think I remember once when Tom Seaver was calling Met games for WPIX. I recall him saying that Hank Aaron had high praise for him, saying Hank Aaron had said that Tom Seaver was one of the toughest pitchers he had ever faced in his career. So I think this is the equivalent of that, what we're seeing. One of the top hitters in the games.
That's a great comparison too, Dan. No doubt about it.
And also, I have to say, nice job by Timmy Trumpet for discovering this and making a trip to New York to and got his wish, and he got to play that song. He got to play his own song as Edwin Diaz was walking up to the mound.
Yeah, Timmy Trumpet played Narco tonight as Edwin Diaz had that really electric, entrance that he's had all season, even when Timmy Trumpet wasn't there playing it live. It seems like Citi Field and the Met fans have just really gravitated towards it, and they get really excited. And I can't blame them because Edwin Diaz has been incredible tonight. He became actually just one of a handful of Mets relievers, either 6 or 7 guys all time that have struck out 100 batters in a season. You have guys like Armando Benitez, Skip Lockwood, Roger McDowell. So the Mets have just a handful of those guys on hand, in their entire history. Edwin Diaz got there quicker than any of them. Just a fantastic year, and Timmy Trumpet, like you said, just being embraced by the Met fans. He's been there the last 2 days. He was here yesterday too, when he threw out the first pitch in Game 1 of this series that the Mets unfortunately dropped 4-3. Taijuan Walker pitched pretty good in that game. But one thing too that's been constant in this Dodgers series is great play from freaking Starlin Marte, right? I mean, 2 big home runs. He had the big home run yesterday that tied the game up at 3-3. He had that tied the game up 3-3. And he also had a big home run today that gave Mets a 2-0 lead. So, I mean, you got to love what you see out of Starlin Marte.
Yep, I have to love that. And also, I got to have praise for the crowd was especially electric when Nimmo made that catch.
That catch, that has to be the catch of the year so far. What an awesome catch for Brandon Nimmo, man. I mean, and I don't know if you saw it from the stands, but just Brandon Nimmo, the way he celebrated and was going crazy and then congratulated Jake and everything. Did you catch any of that from the stands?
I don't think you really got to see that really from the stands. I mean, I was sitting in the upper deck of the stadium, and plus it was in front of me.
True. The enthusiasm that Brandon Nimmo showed after that, when you watch the replay of that catch, man, just awesome. And actually, another thing that you probably missed, because it was a post-game interview, they had, Steve Gelbs and, doing the post-game interview with him. And what he said was, they asked him, what was it like to make that catch? And Nimmo's response was, well, Jake gives so much to us. It was nice to finally give him back, that same thing and take one back for him. And just to hear him say that is so cool, right?
Yeah, that was just so cool. Like, I'm going to be watching this after we film. I'm going to be watching the Nimmo's interview with Steve Gelbs. I got that little Steve Gelbs jingle they used during the pregame.
Yes. Yeah, man. So, I mean, just 2 really great games. They, like we mentioned, they lost 4-3 in Game 1. They win 2-1 tonight. The only, blemish on the Mets pitching tonight was the mistake that DeGrom made to Mookie Betts in the 6th that cut the lead in half to 2-1. Solo shot that Mookie hit, which, Mookie Betts was just named the National League Player of the Week. He's one of the best players in the league, all-star this year. So you can't really knock DeGrom for throwing one bad pitch to Mookie Betts. But then he also threw a bad one to Justin Turner that, like you said before, really electrified the Citi Field crowd when Brandon Nimmo took that one back. And, that I feel like this is just another one of those games and another one of those moments when we're going to look back on this season and point to, oh, remember that Dodger game when Brandon Nimmo made that great this is going to be one of the milestone moments of this 2022 season, right?
Yeah, I feel if we win this whole thing, you're gonna see this game on being shown on Mets Classics a lot. I mean, I hope there's gonna be plenty that they'll be able to hopefully show rain delays.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man. And when you look at it, how many games like that have there been this year? There have been so many. I mean, you've got the no hitter, the 7-run comeback against the Phillies, the 5-run comeback against the Cardinals. You've got the game against the Phillies last week when with the two big Kana home runs. I mean, there have just been so many moments this season. It just feels like it's leading to something special, right?
Yeah, it just feels like it's gonna happen. I feel like it's gonna happen. I mean, there's gonna be so many that I'm gonna be looking back on.
Yeah,
This
yeah, it's true, man. I mean, when you just look back, I mean, the it, it, the moments are piling up, and they're just starting too. I mean, so far, we're through what 5 months now as we record this on August 31st. It's going to be released on September 1st, so we're already at that point now where by the time people are watching this video, rosters will have expanded in Major League Baseball. Obviously, it's not as much as it used to be. Rosters used to expand to 40. Now it goes from a 26-man roster to a 28-man roster, speaking of that too, the Mets are tinkering with their roster right now, as unfortunately it was revealed today that Brett Beatty has a tear in the UCL of his thumb. So he's going to have surgery on it tomorrow, and he's going to most likely miss the rest of the season. There's an outside chance he could return quicker and maybe be there by the end of September and play those last few games. But uh, odds are they're not even going to rush it with him. He got a nice little taste of the majors this year after really tearing it up in the minors all season. But it was nice to get a glimpse of Brett Beatty, right? Even though it was short lived.
Yeah, fortunately, it was short lived. I wish Brett Beatty a speedy recovery. I mean, I got to see this guy in the minors when he was in the Cyclones. I saw him. He got to be a part of that 2019 bowl. Then it was short season A ball, the New York Penn League championship Cyclones. Get to see, and he was part of one of those one of one of the biggest sports moments I feel I've gotten to see was that. That was a fun moment.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And Beatty is a blue chip prospect, as they say. This is the type of guy that you could probably, count on him grabbing that third base job, if not fully next year, 100% by the year after that. He's a very talented kid, as we saw in his major league debut when he hit that big home run of Jake Odorizzi. Very, very talented kid. Just like you said, wish him a speedy recovery. It'd be great to see him again this year, but if this is just a little taste we got of him this year, I'm glad that we got to see him and that he got to experience the majors, for this little while.
I'm glad he got to. Also, I have to say, I surprised. I'm not really 100% sure, but it's 50-50 when rosters expand in September. We could see Mark Vientos be called up. I think probably if you're asking about Alvarez, I know he's kind of still had like some kind of knee soreness or something. Hopefully, that's saying that's going to have him out so long. Get a couple of more at bats in the minors for the rest of the season, and Alvarez will probably be ready somewhere in the beginning or in the middle of the next season for the majors. Like I feel like next year he's going to be here next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that let Alvarez just continue to finish up in the minors. Don't even bring him up this year. No need to rush him because he's been hitting more lately before this injury, like you mentioned, which unfortunately looks like it may end his season. But the minor league season's about to wrap up anyway. But the I agree with you that he's going to be here next year. But to be honest, when you mentioned Mark Vientos, I don't mind them letting him play these last few games in the minor leagues this year. But to be honest, I think that they should give him the shot to catch lightning in a bottle and bring him up for September, because the Mets, look, they've been sticking Darren Ruff in the lineup. And I know Darren Ruff had a couple of big moments early on when the Mets first acquired him, but and I know he hasn't been playing much too, so it's hard to criticize him. But to me, when I see Darren Ruff up in the batter's box right now, it just seems like an automatic out. And, I'm not saying get rid of him, but I'm saying if you have the roster space, maybe give Mark Vientos a chance to snatch that spot for a little while, right?
Yeah, maybe give him. Yeah, for all you know, it might work out in our favor, and he's going to be our lineup down the stretch and potentially in the playoffs. I mean, if this guy's going to be where we hope, got to get in rate.
Yeah, and I mean,
but it's all.
Yeah, man, and it's not like it'd be the first time that teams have brought up a young kid coming up into the postseason. I mean, hell, we remember Shane Spencer back from the '98 Yankees when they brought him up in September, and he just went crazy. He hit like 10 home runs and just absolutely ripped it up that month. And how about Timo Perez from our own Mets, who went from being nowhere in the minor leagues to coming up in September, ripping it up, and then a couple of weeks later, he's leading off in the World Series for the Mets against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. So you never know what can happen with these kids. Sometimes it just works out.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it just works out so well, and let's see how it goes. And might be lucky.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take a chance eventually, because right now, and this has been something that I really haven't heard people harping on that much, because the Mets have still been winning, but their hitting is really starting to slow down. Pete Alonso has been in an extended slump. And I mean, the thing is too, that's the weird thing about it, is that you can't really call it a slump, because he's still producing, but his RBI production has slowed down severely. His home run production has, I mean, he only has about 6 home runs in the last, 40 games or whatever it is. Same thing with Francisco Lindor, who has slowed down considerably. He's been sitting on 85 RBIs for a while now, and 21 home runs. You can't kill these guys because they play every single day. But the fact of the matter is they're starting to slow down, and the offensive production has not been there. You look back at that Rocky series. Well, first off, let's go even back before that, because they had a pretty good offensive game that last day in Philadelphia, but then that was pretty much just Mark Canha ripping it up. After that, you have the 2 games, against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, where the Mets really didn't score much. They didn't really do anything those 2 games. They lost both those games. They dropped 3 out of 4 to the Rockies, where they won those first 3 games, but they didn't really score too many runs. And that last game, they got shut out. Then, they lose 4-3 yesterday, which, 3 runs is okay. They win today 2-1. What do you think, Dan? You think this Met offense, do you think the dog days are just getting to them right now? Maybe they're a little tired, or what do you think the problem is?
Just a slump, but they're holding up well even in this slump. And I think even all the good teams, they kind of get it out of their system now, and they'll be ready down the stretch run in September.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, and the stretch run is definitely starting. I mean, we're recording this a little late right now after the game, so it's about 11:20 at night right now. So it's going to be September 1st before you know it. And but the thing that's good for the Mets about that is that they have the easiest schedule in baseball in September. After this, I mean, when you look at it, so they play tomorrow against the Dodgers, and then after that, that's September 1st. It's a 4:00 game tomorrow, actually, which is kind of cool. I definitely like that. And they play that 4:10 game tomorrow. They don't play another team that's over 500 again until September 19th, when they go to Milwaukee. In between that time, they play Washington, Pittsburgh, Miami, the Cubs, Pittsburgh again, and then they go to Milwaukee. So, and then once they finish at Milwaukee, they go to Oakland, another team under 500. Then they come home and play Miami, another team under 500. they get 3 against Atlanta in Atlanta. That's the tough 3 to end the season. But then the last 3 are at home against the Nationals, another bad team. So the Mets only play 6 games over the last 35 days of the season or so against teams that are 500. So that's definitely something in our favor. But the fact of the matter is, you have to take advantage of it, right?
Exactly. You got to take advantage of it. And I kind of have to admit, like I said before, if there's any airline watching this, give us a call because I kind of would like to attend that Atlanta series.
Yeah, that Atlanta series, those 3 games in Atlanta are going to be really, really big. Well, actually, the thing is too, you got to hope maybe the Mets pick up a couple of games. I'm sorry, what were you saying, Dan?
Said we'll take any airline, even Spirit, if they.
Yeah, exactly. Even Spirit, we'll take you too. And but you got to figure those 3 games are going to matter at least somewhat. But also too, the Mets ended up losing. The other day, the Braves could have picked up ground on the Mets, but also lost to the Rockies, which was big. The Phillies actually lost. Yesterday was the first day in a couple of months that the Mets, Phillies, and Braves all lost in the same day. That just goes to show you how hot all 3 of these teams have been. And really outside of the Dodgers, you could say that those 3 teams have been the best 3 teams in the National League, right?
I feel like pretty much it's been like a tough dog fight this whole season. I felt like.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. I mean, it's definitely a dogfight. It's been one all year. We foolishly thought on June 1st, when the Mets were sitting 10 games up in the division after having a very dominant May and a very good April as well. But really, May is where they kicked it into gear and really built that lead up that they haven't relinquished yet, although it's gotten down pretty low. It was down to as low as a game at one point recently. But the Mets had that 10-game lead on June 1st, and it evaporated very quickly because the Braves have just been on a crazy tear. But the Dodgers, though, the team the Mets have played over the last couple of days, have been on an even crazier tear, including this series. The Dodgers are 50-11 in their last 61 games. How crazy is that, Dan? I mean, that to be on that kind of run over that long of a part of the season is nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I have a feeling today's game is going to be a low-scoring game, and I think tomorrow's game might be low-scoring. Also, I have to say, I think it's weird that tomorrow's a 4 o'clock game. Usually on a weekday, like a Thursday, I kind of usually expect like 1 o'clock. That has to do with the fact maybe some West Coast people must have bribed MLB to make sure, because they didn't think people wanted to watch a game at 9 o'clock in the morning in LA.
Well, that's a good point, actually.
Didn't have a problem with it because I got a friend of mine. I know someone in the West Coast that also likes NASCAR like me, and said nowadays they have a habit of pushing the race start time to 2 o'clock. He says they had no problem with the 1 o'clock East Coast time start times. He said back in the day. He said back in the day it was very common to eat breakfast and watch NASCAR. So could have handled a 9 o'clock West Coast time start time.
Yeah, well, hey, that makes sense. They're playing the Dodgers, so I guess bump it back a little bit, especially since the Dodgers are going back west anyway. So, it's not like they're going the other way where they're going to lose time. They're going to gain a couple hours anyway. So they probably don't really care what time they get out of New York. They're not, even if they got back to LA 1 o'clock our time, it's going to be 10 p.m. their time. So it's still not that bad. Yeah, good job by the Mets and good job by the Dodgers. But it's going to be tough tomorrow because you got to remember that 4 o'clock start brings those twilight conditions very shortly, in those early innings and everything before the sun goes down, which actually the sun probably won't be going down because it's still, it's it's still going to be sunny most of the game at least. But when you think about it, Dan, you're going to have those conditions where it's going to be really tough to hit for the hitters when you're in the shade, the pitcher's in the sunlight, makes it very difficult. And it's even harder when the Mets are going against probably a future Hall of Famer tomorrow in Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to be a low-scoring game. I also, if I'm correct, Kershaw is coming back from an injury.
Yeah, he just came off his rehab assignment. He was on the DL.
He might be on a little bit of a pitch count, like DeGrom was early in his return. So
yeah, he's definitely going to be limited because he hasn't pitched, with the Dodgers at least since I think it was August 4th. So he's pretty much been out the whole month of August. He did have a rehab started too, so they're definitely going to work him back in. But I wouldn't really expect to see him much beyond the 5th or the 6th inning.
Exactly. So I feel Mets, we got to hold up for those 5 innings. Hopefully we'll get into the bullpen after that.
Mm-hmm. Make him throw pitches that's what this team has been good at all year. And they're just going to have to work the count and make him throw pitches and get him out as quickly as you possibly can.
Exactly. Also, we got a guy who's been one of our best pitchers all year, Chris Bassick, who's really been stepping up. I mean, he kind of just flew under the radar, but really has stepped up this season. So I expect more of that from Bassick tomorrow.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, Chris Bassitt has been invaluable to the Mets this year. DeGrom has been on the IL. Scherzer has been on the IL. There have been times where Taijuan Walker has been banged up. Obviously, Carlos Carrasco is currently on the IL, even though luckily it looks like he's going to come out. They even lost Tyler McGill. There have been plenty of people to go down this year, but Chris Bassitt has been the one constant. He takes the ball every 5th day. And he's just one of those guys. He eats innings and he's productive too. He goes out there and he's got a ERA in the low 3s. He's going to be looking for his 12th win tomorrow. I really hope the Mets extend a good offer to Chris Bassitt and bring him back next year, because that's exactly the type of guy you need, who flies under the radar of the greatness of DeGrom and Scherzer.
Yeah, that's what I expected. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes tomorrow. I'll be watching right after I've just walked Maloonigan before the game, because he's gonna get his walk.
Yeah, man. So that's just a great 2 games so far. And one other thing too is that the Mets and the Dodgers have played 6 games so far this year, and they've split the first 6. So the 3-3 against the Dodgers, and tomorrow's game is going to be for the season series. So it's a very important game tomorrow. And not that because the Mets probably, unless they have a crazy September and the Dodgers start to slip a little bit, the Mets are probably going to finish with a record worse than the Dodgers. So it's not going to necessarily be for home field or anything, most likely, but it would definitely be a confidence boost, and it would, to me, it would show that the Mets can hang with the big guys, and that they are, and even though they've proved that already, in my opinion, they've proved that already, but I think winning the season series against the Dodgers is a big statement.
Yep, exactly, big statement, and I'm hoping to see the Mets win the game, and I'm expecting that. I don't know how much of a crowd it's going to be. I'm going to be watching the game at home, so I don't know how much of a crowd it'll be for a weekday day game, but hopefully it'll be a nice little crowd for a weekday day game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be a good game. A good crowd, because the last 2 days, the draw of the Mets and the Dodgers has filled the stadium. And it's not like, this past weekend, against the Rockies, the Mets had a packed house pretty much every game too, but there was a lot of giveaways. They had Old Timers Day on Saturday. They gave away the Scherzer bobblehead over the weekend. There were things to draw people to the ballpark. And sure, some people were probably drawn by Timmy Trumpet being in the building yesterday. But for the most part, the selling point of the last 2 days at Citi Field has been the Mets and the Dodgers, the two best teams in the National League, going head to head. And I think that will translate tomorrow too, even though it's at a little bit of a weird time. The Mets had 41,000, really just under 42,000. It was 41,000, around 800 tonight in the building, and they had over 40,000 in the building last night. So I'm going to make a prediction right now that they're going to at least have 35,000 in the building tomorrow. What do you think?
Yep, exactly. And I'm sure they're going to have a big crowd this weekend. Even though there isn't a major giveaway, it's going to be a huge crowd this weekend for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And they're even playing, a crappy team this weekend in the Nationals. And I guarantee that you're going to be right, that it's going to be packed house every night. Because even one other thing, I don't know if you were still in the building for it when Brandon Nimmo was giving that interview with a Gelb's post game, but he even said he was talking to the crowd where he said, "Thanks for coming out and supporting us. This is playoff baseball. Keep coming out. We can't wait to see you guys." It was really cool seeing Nimmo interact with the crowd like that.
Yep, that's for sure. I guess I may have not seen it because I rushed to the bathroom after the game because I had to go to the bath. I held it I iron bladdered it for the game. What I call it. I that's a term I kind of developed from Compound Media. Most of the time, it's hard for me to hold it the entire show. I don't know how Anthony holds it the 2 hours, but whenever I've held it an entire Compound Media broadcast of a show on Compound Media, I would call it. I would say, "Yeah, I iron bladdered it today."
Oh man. Well, yeah,
It's usually difficult for me to iron bladder it.
yeah. Well, I think he did the right thing because the end of that game was pretty awesome to see. And even though I guess in the bathroom you would have heard Howie Rose's call, which is still pretty cool. But the awesome thing is that the Mets won again tonight. They're 83-48. They're still first place, still 3 games up on the Braves. And right now, let's do a quick little Mets temperature check, Dan. Right now, if the playoffs were to start today, what's your confidence level going into a series against the Dodgers?
I really feel like we could win this. As long as we keep it low scoring, we could win it. That I feel is a trick to everything, is that you keep as much runs off the board off the opponent.
Yeah. No doubt about it, man. And there's one big blow to the Dodgers too, and that's the fact that Walker Buehler or already had Tommy John surgery. So not only is he done for this year, he's probably done next year too. Really big blow. I mean, I always liked seeing Walker Buehler pitch. How do you think that affects the Dodgers, Dan? I mean, that's a pretty big blow.
I think it does affect them, whether they want to admit it or not. He's probably a pitcher they want to have, especially with his playoff experience. So it's gonna play a factor, I think.
Yeah, very true. Very true, man. Well,
be one of those situations with them. Bueller.
Yeah, well, well, Dodgers fans are going to be saying that for a while because they're probably, unfortunately for baseball too, because he's a great pitcher. We're probably not going to be seeing Walker Buehler until maybe the very end of next season if he recovers quickly, but more likely than not, probably the beginning of the 2024 season. So, very unfortunate situation out there. Now that we got the Mets out of the way, and we definitely like to spend our time talking about the Mets because, as you could tell from my shirt and Dan's hat and Dan's shirt, that we're big Met fans. So we talked about the Mets a lot. But we're gonna move on to some other things. Real quick, the Yankees. Some football talk, and we'll wrap up with that RJ Barrett deal that the Knicks struck the other day, where they gave him an extension. But we do want to announce too. There's also a schedule change alert right now, as a slight change of plans. As Bobo is going to be playing on what's it called, on Sunday, September 11th at 6 p.m. Brooklyn Comedy Club. Check it out with Stevie Lou, a good friend of the show, and just definitely make sure to check that out. Brooklyn Comedy Club. We'll be putting more details on social media and everything, but definitely check that out because that is going to be a lot of fun on Sunday night, September 11th. So do yourself a favor.
I'll be after I perform my set in that bill. I'll probably be running to the bar area after because the Giants game will probably still be on.
True. What is the Giants opening day? What are they? 4 o'clock game?
Yeah, they're the 4 o'clock game. The Giants are the 4 o'clock game.
Oh, I see. That's pretty cool too, because the Jets are going to be on at 1. Giants come on at 4. That's going to be a full day of New York football.
Yeah, well, yeah, it'll probably be a full day of New York sports and I'll probably need to make sure I have my power bank charged up when I'm at that bar because show sports that are at the back of the club. But I'll have my phone to watch on the SNY app the Met game, and the Giants. Well, this is in the New York area only, but if you're in the New York area on the Giants app, they put the games on the Giants app, so I'll be able to use the Giants app to watch the Giants. Hopefully win against Tennessee that time on the opener season in Tennessee.
That's true too. Actually, the NFL is really good about their streaming services with that. With whatever games are on regular TV are really easily available on the apps and everything. I do it with the Jets all the time too, and it's much better than MLB.
Local. The only, of course, I'm talking about the game seeing the game on the Giants app. Bear in mind that only works in the New York area.
True. That definitely is true, but it's pretty awesome. And actually, you know what? I remember when I saw the Mets in Colorado, and I think it must have been just because the game was on ESPN. It was the Monday night game that the Jets were playing against the Browns. I actually was able to, from my seat in Coors Field, watch the Jets lose an ugly game to the Cleveland Browns. And of course, I only watched for like the first half because the second half was, I think the Jets lost that game 23-3. But I remember watching it from my seat in Coors Field on the Jets app, and that was 3 years ago at this point. And MLB has to catch up with that.
That's true. They have to catch up with that. But anyway, the one thing I have to knock the NFL on is the Amazon deal.
Yeah, that Amazon deal. You got the Yankees on Amazon. You got the Thursday Night Football on Amazon now. It's crazy, man.
I'm gonna have to do that every time the Giants are on Amazon, and or I'm either gonna have to buy an Amazon subscription for football season only, or maybe I could see if my friend who owns. I do know the owner of Donovan's in Woodside.
Very true.
I can make sure I'll ask him if he's gonna have the Thursday night games at his bar, if the bar has an Amazon subscription, which I would hope he would, because bars really make a killing during football season as being, trying to market themselves as being the place to watch football.
Oh, very true. I mean, they love having the ability to play as many games throughout the day as they possibly can. That's definitely a big thing for any local bar, really, because people love watching football on Sunday. So, especially, whatever team they're rooting for.
As a matter of fact, when I had saw this tweet when it was too late, but a few years ago, Matt, I wish I would have saw it earlier in the day, because I remember I saw a tweet saying, "Oh, do you know where I could find?" Where he wanted to know if he could find a bar in New York to watch the Broncos. Matt's a huge Broncos fan. If I would have saw that tweet a lot earlier, I would have probably told Matt, "Yeah, come to Donovan's in Woodside. They usually have out of market games." So, and I'm sure the owner, he likes the co-owner, he likes the show. He'll I'll take care of you. Make sure you have a TV. Make sure. Well, you might find me as for your luck. You might find me as a guest bartender.
Definitely at good old Donovan's out there. Yeah.
I've seen that. That be all of a sudden Matt decides to just have me spontaneously guest bartender. Give me a Stilla.
Oh man, that would definitely be a sight. You could definitely get some YouTube views on that one.
That would get some YouTube. But anyway, and by the way, Matt Iceman, I'm sure you're a fan of the shows and everything. If you're watching this, definitely come on, Bessie in the house someday. We would love to have you on one day. I would be so happy to have you on the show, Matt.
The great Matt Iceman, absolutely would love to have Matt Iceman on at any time. Anytime there's an open door policy for Matt Iceman, he could come on anytime that he wants. And if you want to talk about the Broncos, hell, me and Dan will learn about the Broncos.
Love to hear Matt share some of his memories over the years of him being a fan. We would love to hear.
Exactly, and I'm sure he's excited with Russell Wilson as his new quarterback this season. well,
the Iceman's excited about it.
No doubt about it, man. And you know what? While we're talking about football right now, we'll save the Yankees for a little bit right now, as I also just saw that Shohei Ohtani just hit a 3-run shot off Garrett Cole, and the Yankees now trail the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, whatever you want to call them, 3-2 now. So the rubber game of this series, the Yankees really trying to straighten things out again, and big 3-run shot from Shohei Ohtani there. But we were talking about football, so I do want to ask you, Dan. I don't know, did you get a chance to look at any of these cuts the Giants have made, and what do you think of their final roster?
I think they got a well-rounded roster, but I really feel what's going to be real telling is that this whole season is going to really tell where we need to be. I feel in order for it to be a worthy cause, we have to either make the playoffs or get very close to it. No less than being very close to it.
Yeah, I mean, you could just hope with the fact that the Giants, team top to bottom is definitely constructed better than it's been the last couple of years. It seems a little bit healthier with Saquon Barkley in that department. And, it seems like spirits are even higher around the Giants. Maybe that's just because of the new regime taking over right now. And it's kind of like the honeymoon period, which could be a good thing too, because maybe that team just needs that breath of fresh air. I also saw earlier that Leonard Williams was named a defensive captain for the Giants. And what do you think about that? He's ever since the Jets and the Giants pulled off one of their rare trades a couple of years ago, where the Jets sent Leonard Williams to the Giants, he's been pretty good for them, right?
Yeah, he's been pretty good. I feel he's been a step in the right direction for this team, and I feel we have nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, he worked his way up too. He, when the Giants picked him up from the Jets, he was kind of like a shell of himself. I mean, this is a guy the Jets picked 6th overall. I forget what year. I want to say 2016 or 2015. And he was a really, really good player. I mean, there were a lot of people too coming out of that draft that said that the Jets selected Leonard Williams, who was the most talented player in that draft. Now, that didn't pan out that way, even though he's still a good player with a relatively high ceiling. But it just didn't work out with the Jets for whatever reason. Maybe he kind of lost his way. Maybe he was just discouraged, or just kind of got into a routine that he couldn't get out of. But the Jets kind of zapped him out of it. They sent him to the Giants, and he's had a couple of good years in that period and got a big contract out of it.
Yeah, and I hope it works out for the best Also, I have to say about the Knicks lately, RJ Barrett, great move by the Knicks. I feel that the only thing that we need to do now is the inevitable Donovan Mitchell coming to the Knicks. I
Yeah.
feel that trade, we got to make that trade. There is so much at stake. Ownership really does not, I feel, has a fire lit up their ass because they haven't forgotten what happened that whole free agency debacle the last time. We thought we were getting some big name free agents, and they definitely have not forgotten the LeBron James debacle. Remember that whole thing?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Were you really like that? LeBron's coming to New York. Like we thought it was a formality. It was going to happen, and I was cursing at the end of that announcement special, if you remember.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was fuck you, LeBron. Fuck my. I was like upset, right? Not to knock anything about the city. I was just upset that LeBron. All right, don't worry, Miami. I'm not upset about any of the people in Miami. I'm just upset that LeBron James turned us down.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's
was
true.
all right. I was just believe me, I was upset with
Yeah,
LeBron.
and you mentioned the RJ contract, 4 years, 120 million. Pretty good deal for the Knicks, pretty good deal for RJ. And this is the first time that the Knicks have given a new contract to a first round draft pick since 1999. So it's been a long time since the Knicks were just picking up that 50-year option and letting guys like Nate Robinson and David Lee and any of these other guys are trading them or cutting them or whatever may happen. They traded Porzingis before they could extend him. They cut guys like Neil Aquina and they traded Kevin Knox. There's a lot of swings and misses with the Knicks over the last couple of decades. And it looks like they nailed it with RJ. And, that was a really interesting tactic by the Knicks, too, because it looks to me like they were calling this a poison pill, where the Suns wanted the Knicks to, or the Knicks laid a deadline. And they told the Suns that by this past Monday night, we had to agree to a deal. The deal would have included RJ and 4 first-round draft picks, 2 of those being unprotected. It also would have included Miles McBride and probably one other player. A lesser role player, no one necessarily big, not even Obi Toppin. I saw in this version of the trade that included RJ Barrett. And supposedly Danny Ainge, the new man in charge over there for Phoenix, rejected that trade. Now, look, I just want to say I think Danny Ainge is a good GM. He usually wins trades. He usually fleeces teams for the most part. But you're telling me that this guy rejected a trade where he would have acquired a 22-year-old RJ Barrett, still in his rookie contract, with 4 first-round draft pick and 2 role players coming with him, and he said no to that just because 2 were, unprotected? I think that's crazy, man. How do you turn down that kind of trade?
I mean, I hear we're still negotiating a trade. I'm sure you've heard too.
Yep.
I feel like it's inevitable. If he's not coming here this off season, he's coming to New York next off season.
I think he's coming here. I think you're right. It's going to happen. Whenever it happens, it's going to happen. It seems to me, too, like it's going to happen sooner rather than later because, how do you go back to a team that shopped you literally the entire, summer, and he knows that they've been shopping him. He's been basically asking them to shop him, too. And no team has the assets that the Knicks have to offer. So right now, I think the Knicks have the best offer on the table. I think they could even spice it up a little bit if they pull the Lakers in, like we were talking about last week. Maybe they could get a 3-team deal done and get a couple of those late 2020s draft picks from the Lakers. Maybe include a Julius Randle or whatever you have to do to make salary work. But I really think they're going to get this deal done. And one other little interesting tidbit too is that uh, Donovan Mitchell actually just yesterday, as we're recording this, so it would be 2 days ago by the time people are viewing this, but he just took off the Phoenix Suns and all references to the Phoenix Suns on his Twitter and Instagram and all of his social media. So I think he's expecting something to happen. It's very, it's funny. It's such a 2020s, and it's such a new age thing where it's like, oh, he took off, references to his team on social media. But actually, when guys do that, it actually is kind of sending a message, right?
Yeah, it is, and I have hopefully this time with this big name coming to the team, it actually does happen, and the balloons can start falling. That Donovan is coming home.
Yeah, and I mean, it'd be a hell of a trio if you have, Donovan Mitchell, RJ Barrett, and the newcomer Jalen Brunson, whose birthday it was just today. Happy birthday, Jalen! If he's watching, if he's a fan of Best Seat in the House. But hey, I think I think the Knicks are heading in the right direction. And one other thing that makes me happy with this whole situation we got regarding RJ and Donovan Mitchell and everything else coming into it. I think years ago, Knicks management, probably pushed a little bit by James Dolan, would have panicked and included RJ in a deal for this and given them all the unprotected picks they want and just kind of put themselves into a hole like they did with Carmelo. Where with Carmelo, all they would have had to do is wait the rest of that season. Where look, everybody knew that no one outside of the Heat was winning the East that year. Everybody knew the Heat were going to the finals. So the fact that the Knicks gave up all of those assets, first round draft picks, and all those other players and everything like that, they had to give up to get Carmelo Anthony, and they painted themselves into a corner that they never had enough assets to go out and acquire another all-star player to play with Carmelo. So after a while, it all kind of fell apart. Amari Stoudemire was a shell of himself, and the team just didn't really have much after that. They had that one great year, and after that, that was it. They can't do that this time. They have to leave themselves with enough wiggle room to bring in one more big guy. And I like the fact that they're not panicking and giving away everything right now just to get this instant gratification, right?
Yep, exactly. And it's going to work well for this team in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Knicks are on the right track, and that's the main thing that we can take out of this. And so just to keep this moving along right now, I do want to finish up real quick with the Jets as we were talking about the football and everything. Earlier we mentioned that the Giants final roster was in. The same thing with the Jets. Really no surprises. There's a couple of guys like Jason Pinnock who got cut, who's been a big special teams guy for the Jets the last couple of years, and he was actually picked up by the Giants, interestingly enough. So the Giants are probably going to make a move and add him, or at the very least add to their practice squad maybe. But the Jets, had 7 guys that they cut get picked up across the league. Surprisingly, Chuma Edoga, their right tackle, was picked up, and Jason Pinnock, like I mentioned, and 5 other guys along with those 2. And Dan, I mean, you've seen it too with the Giants, and these teams have just been so barren and empty with talent. And to look at that number and see that 7 guys that the Jets cut that weren't good enough to make this current version of the Jets got picked up across the league, I think that really speaks to the depth that the Jets have added and not bought, as Coach Saleh pointed out today. Because, especially over the last couple of years, the Jets have been trying to solve all their problems by just buying up free agents. But the good drafts that they had the last year or two have allowed them to kind of stack their team up a little bit finally, and look like a at least competitive NFL team for the first time in a while, right?
Yeah, I have to say but it looks like they're going to be they're probably going to be have a decent season. At the same time, I feel these first few weeks are going to play a factor because you got to remember Zach Wilson is injured. So how will the Jets hold up in that time until Zach Wilson comes back is going to play a big factor.
Oh yeah, man, you're absolutely right about that. I mean, it's gonna a lot is gonna fall on Joe Flacco. 37-year-old former Super Bowl MVP. This is going to be his first crack at starting in a couple of years, outside of a few weeks here and there for the Jets to fill in for injuries the last couple of years with Sam Darnold his last year here and Zach Wilson's rookie season. But I think that he's okay. He had a bad final preseason game against the Giants. He threw a pick six, didn't look too great. But Mike White had a good game. Mike White looks like an electric presence coming off the bench there. So I do feel like if Flacco struggles and doesn't look too good and is starting to look 37, I think they could always turn to Mike White until Zach Wilson comes back because, hey, like it or not, right now, Zach Wilson was the number 2 pick last year. He's still the future of this franchise. And the Jets are either going to sink or swim with him at this point, right? Yeah, so
It's gonna be a wild first couple of weeks for the Jets.
yeah,
They're gonna really dictate what their season's could like.
yeah, you're right, man. And it's going to be a big start for this season and a big season in general for both of our teams here as the Jets and the Giants both try to just be competitive and be in that playoff mix. And hey, let's play some meaningful games, around and keeping our fingers crossed even after Thanksgiving. And
I want to still see the Giants in contention when I'm watching that Thanksgiving game in front of my TV.
and that's all you can ask, right? Just make that game meaningful.
Yeah, I want to be meaningful as I watch it eating my Thanksgiving dinner in front of the TV as I have planned.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And all right, as we're it's getting a little late here, so we're gonna try and wrap up in the next couple of minutes. But I do want to touch on the Yankees before we get out of here. The Yankees coming off this road trip right now as they're on the West Coast. The Yankees were riding high. They took both games from the Mets last week. They go out west. They took the first 2 from Oakland, and hey, it looks like they're gonna roll to getting back on track like they have been waiting for ever since the All-Star break. Hasn't worked out like that, as they, after winning the first 2 in Oakland, they went out and dropped the final 2 to split that series, and that's definitely disappointing against a pretty crappy Oakland team. And they dropped the opener against the Angels. They won yesterday 7-4, and now in this rubber game, they're still currently trailing 3-2 in the 9th inning. Aaron Judge is on first base with Giancarlo Stanton up. So I guess we'll react to it if we're still recording and this game ends. But the Yankees are in kind of a bad way right now, and they have a big series coming up against Tampa Bay. I mean, it doesn't get any easier after that too. They play Tampa Bay, then they get 4 against Minnesota, who they usually handle well, but you have to respect Minnesota as they're currently leading their division. And they play 3 against Tampa Bay again. So 6 of your next 10 games are against Tampa Bay. So the Yankees have to be on top of their game, right, Dan?
Top of their game, and it's going to be a huge uphill. I mean, and Nestor Cortez, I think that's his name is. I think he's out for the season, if I'm correct.
Is he out for the year? I hadn't heard that.
I heard he was injured.
Yeah, I think he's on the 15-day DL, but I don't know if he's out for the season, though. Let me double check that.
But I know at this time of year, trying to get back from the DL could be an uphill battle.
Yeah, oh, no doubt about it. I mean, that's why it was such a um, disappointment when we heard the Brett Beatty news from our perspective, because hey, if this happened in May, he'd be back by July and it wouldn't really be a big deal. But it happened in the end of August, so he's probably done for the year. Nestor Cortez, it's the same thing. I mean, he's going to be cutting it close. And I actually just saw that Nestor Cortez, the New York Post is reporting that he threw his first bullpen session since the injury the other day. So he's probably not done for the year. They're probably at least going to try and work him back at some point. But but it's a big blow, and like you said, you never know with these kind of injuries. This could end your season like that.
Yep, exactly. And there's always the risk that maybe a player kind of pushes too hard and gets injured trying to come back. I mean, we remember last year it happened with DeGrom.
Exactly. You try too hard, and you end up hurting yourself. And you hear stories from athletes like that all the time who just want to be back there, and they end up doing more harm than good. And unfortunately, that could be the case in this scenario. So, you don't want to rush him back, especially for the Yankees, because he's this is a guy who statistically could start game one of a playoff series. He probably won't. It'll be Garrett Cole, because Garrett Cole is Garrett Cole. But you could make the case that Nestor Cortez, if healthy, should pitch game one of the playoff series.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah. So, as the Yankees are threatening right now, we do want to start wrapping up here. And before we get out of here, though, there are a couple of things we want to plug. Aside from, like we mentioned earlier, don't forget to check out the Brooklyn Comedy Club on Sunday night, September 11th, 6 p.m. Stevie Lou is going to be there. Our buddy and our own Daniel Bobo Kurlan is going to be performing that night. So be sure to check that out. That'll be a lot of fun. Also, don't forget, next week, if you're going to be tuning into the show, we're going to have a bunch of fun stuff. Two special little things we're going to be going out. We're going to be playing a new game that we just came up called Stump the Bow. Send us your your questions. Any question you got, we're going to be presenting it on the show. Hashtag Stump the Bow. Check that out on Twitter. Obviously, we're going to be putting it out there too, but send in your questions. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hashtag Stump the Bow. We want to get that going. Because this guy, he really is a savant. He knows. I sometimes marvel at the knowledge that this young man has. So please give him your questions, because I want everybody to see what I see behind the scenes. So let's see if you can stump the Bow. Hashtag Stump the Bow on Twitter. Send it out to us. Try and stump him. See if you could do it. I haven't been able to do it yet. So let's see if you can. Also, next week, Bo's got a special presentation for us, as we did the All-Star Baseball mug shots last week or last month. Now we're going to be in celebration of the start of the NFL season. We're going to be doing the all mugshot NFL team, right, Dan?
Yep. All mugshot team.
The all mugshot team, much like the all pro or the all Madden team, whichever way you want to go with it. We're going to be doing that next week. And football has a very long list of athletes you could add to that, right, buddy?
I've heard the old running gag, National Felony League.
That's true. That's true. That's been a old gag for quite some time. They're trying to change that, but really hasn't been too successful yet. But hey, so we got a couple of fun things coming up next week. Don't forget, hashtag Stump the Bow. Check out also, like we mentioned one more time, Sunday night, September 11th, Brooklyn Comedy Club, Stevie Lou, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. Get your freaking tickets now. Check it out. Once again, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We really appreciate all the love that we get from our followers and our fans and everything. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube. And Dan, before we get out of here, do you have any plugs you want to give?
Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter at Bobo103NYC. You can always get some content, even maybe some videos, just some stuff of what's going on with me and what it's like being the crazy Mets fan that I am.
Exactly.
You can check out my YouTube. Well, the Daniel Kurlan on YouTube. I got some stuff there. I'm gonna actually put some new stuff on there pretty soon.
Exactly. So check that out. And also, if you want to see any updates from our show or anything, you can check us out at bsith_podcast on Twitter. Check us out there. Also at Best Seat in the House podcast on Instagram. And if you want to check out anything that I have going on, you can check me out on Twitter at my last name Cramer NY. So once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Always a pleasure sitting down with my buddy Dan here to give you this content. So we appreciate you supporting it. And thanks for tuning in to Best Seat in the House podcast.
All right, you're recording.